These are 5 pieces of drum gear I wish I hadn't bought. That's coming up. What's up, Justin here, welcome to 65 Drums. This is the place to keep on top of all things electronic drum related, so thanks for stopping by. These are 5 pieces of drum gear I wish I hadn't bought, ranging from really cheap so that I don't really care that I wasted $5, all the way to something slightly more expensive that I am kind of sad I actually bought. So let's get started. The first one is just the line of mesh drum heads by the company ZED. I got the 2-ply version right here and the 3-plies in ZED XXX version right here. So this 2-ply version right here, my absolute favorite 2-ply as far as feel goes I've ever played. Just love the bounce, the response I get from this mesh drum head. And no, it's not actually black. This was the test dummy for a video I did about turning white mesh drum heads black. If you want to see that video, I'll link it down in the description below. But the problem when you put these on your acoustic drum shells is that it doesn't seat quite well on that shell. So what happened was when I screwed everything down, the rim on one side was up higher than the rim on the other side. It was pretty drastic. Another thing I noticed was that when I tried to remove this darn thing, I basically had to punch it off of the shell because it was stuck on that Sonorforce 2001 acoustic drum shell. Again, I love the feel of these guys. It's just that the way they get seated on the acoustic drum shell, it just doesn't work for me. All right, let's move on to number 2. This is the Roland RT30HR. This is a decent trigger. The problem though is that it's like $80 or so. This is the Roland RT10. This trigger is just as good and it's like half the price. But the fact you can buy a whole set of these for the price of just 2 of these newer versions, I would just buy the older Roland RT10s. The pros for buying one of these is the fact that it just looks nicer, it looks more professional, and the fact that it fits more kinds of shell hoops, like weird variations of shell hoops I guess I don't own for some reason. And another thing it has is a software trick with the newer updates for like your Roland TD30, your Roland TD11. It will have the Roland RT30 trigger preset, and it lets you have an extra degree of control over false triggering. But as far as performance goes, I found that they were basically the same. If you want to go see a comparison video, I'll leave a link to that down in the description below. All right, let's move on to number 3. This is the Pearl Muffle head. When I first started converting my acoustic kick drum, I bought this because of how cheap it is. The problem is that it just doesn't feel quite right, and also there are giant dents right here. I'll try to put a picture on the screen because I know you can't see it from here, but there are giant dents from the kick drum beaters, and you shouldn't have giant dents like that in your mesh drum head. It's just because this is really thin and it stretches. Save your money and buy a better acoustic or a better mesh drum head. And regardless of whatever mesh drum head you buy, try to put a blanket or a pillow behind it. That way it deadens the mesh drum head a little bit, gives it a little more weight to it. It feels more like an acoustic Mylar kick drum head. Just a quick tip right there. Let's move on to number 4. These are the Neewer Piezos. These guys are incredibly cheap, $2.50 on eBay. I don't even know if they sell them right now, but I saw them one day and I decided to buy 2 of them because it was $5. I had to buy it. This is basically the same thing as a Simmons $20 piezo you'll find at Guitar Center, except with a much poorer build quality. One time I tried to convert a djembe and I used this one and the Simmons trigger. If you want to see a comparison, I'll leave a link to that video down in the description below. But as far as build quality goes, the cord is extremely thin. The housing right here actually pops off. Like, look at that. The piezo right there is exposed. Every time you try to use this with a drum, the housing has the potential to pop right off. And I'm sure the piezo inside of it is extremely poor quality. Not all piezos are created equal. Not all piezos are great for drums. Spending a little bit more money for better build quality is worth it in the end if you plan on using a drum set for more than a week. Let's move on to number 5. This one is kind of borderline between me wishing I had bought it and hadn't bought them, just because it was really annoying, but it was kind of worth the money in the end. The first one is this Kat KT4 Drumset. I needed a drum module and some cymbals. I've got everything else. I just needed those elements to make a secondary road travel drum set. And I was looking around on eBay for a Kat KT4 drum module, and then I found an entire drum set, an entire Kat drum set that a music store was getting rid of, and I got in the bidding war somewhere around $100 or $200, and then I finally won the entire drum set for $500. This is a $1,200 drum set. The drum module costs $500 by itself, so I thought to myself, logically, well, If I was gonna spend 500 bucks on a drum module by itself anyway, I might as well get an entire drum set regardless of the condition. I get it home, I unpack it, I'll leave a link to that video if you wanna see that. And the problem was that all the cymbals, except for this one, were broken in some way, shape, or form. I'm probably gonna throw away the 2 crash cymbals just because they're too far gone in my opinion. When you try to take it apart, you find out very quickly it was never meant to be taken apart and repaired. It's just not built that way. The ride cymbal is fine. The hi-hat was split in half. I glued that back together. Those are the only 2 cymbals from the original drum set I'm still using. I'm still glad I bought this drum set though, because I got a nice drum rack, I got a $500 drum module, I got a ride cymbal that's probably, you'd have to spend somewhere around 100 bucks or something to get something like this anyway, so I got my money's worth out of it, but it was a bit of a hassle. The second thing I almost wish I hadn't bought was an Iron Cobra double kick drum pedal. It's the one I'm still using today. The reason why I kind of wish I almost didn't buy it was because even though I bought it for an incredible price, I got it for like 120 bucks off of a guy. I think he may have been on drugs. Anyway, got a great deal on the thing, but the linkage arm wasn't quite, like all the pieces weren't there. It was kind of sort of broken, and then I broke it later on. I had to replace that linkage arm. I bought this generic one off of eBay somewhere, and I'll leave a link to that review of that linkage arm if you want to check it out. It's incredibly cheap for what it is, but it's rock solid. That's one thing you got to check out before you buy any sort of used item. Make sure it's in full repair before you buy it, or if you're going to get a great deal on it because it's slightly broken, in your mind you got to calculate the cost of buying the product and then buying a replacement part and add those 2 costs together, and then compare that final cost versus just buying the thing and fully functioning but also used. So you got to do a little bit of math to make sure it all works out for you. But what I want to know is, have you ever bought a piece of gear for your drum set, you got it home, you thought it was a great idea, you started using it, 6 months later you wish you had never bought the thing? What's that one item that you wish you hadn't bought? Leave it down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, leave it a like. I'll see you in a few.